Welcome to YourTown, Monterey's Access Monterey Peninsula channel, letting you know all about your region. We're lucky today. We've got 3 great guests. Hopefully you'll join us, stay with us whenever we have these programs so you learn a little bit more about your community. I'm Marianne Leffel. I'm your host. I'm the president of the Monterey County Business Council. And today we've got 3 exciting, fairly new opportunities for people here in the community. The first one is a rookie, one of my favorite rookies, Mr. Robert Weakley, Altai Brands. Welcome.
Thank you, Marianne. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk cannabis.
What is the cannabis?
You got way in on the kind of like the cutting edge of the state of California in the medical marijuana, not to do a CD dispensary, but to do it right, and I applaud you. You want to talk a little bit about your business?
Thank you. It was pretty interesting. It's been 2.5 years now. I think 2.5 years ago, when I told individuals like yourself and others, people looked at me like I had 3 heads, and it's been a wild ride. I think we see how public perception has changed over the last 2.5 years, and kind of the entire mood of not only California but the country. A lot of people don't actually realize, but California's had a legal cannabis industry for 20 years. With medicinal, and now with Prop 64 passing in November with the voters, it'll be adult use, or otherwise known as recreational, in January of 18. So it's a gear up for that.
This is kind of like the Wild West, the gold rush, and I guess it's the green rush. Yeah. Monterey County, because of its great weather and its plethora of greenhouses, many of them that hadn't been used in some time, we became kind of a center of this in California, didn't we?
Did, and I think it's a great resurgence for a lot of these greenhouses. If you go out in these areas where the cut flower business was huge, a decade or 2 ago, you're now seeing all of these being rejuvenated, and lots of capital going into retrofit and build these properties back up and continue to employ people. So it's really something exciting to watch, and I think Monterey County and the city of Salina have done a great job at really looking at the industry and how they can be the model for it. Not rushing into it and making rash decisions or anything like that, but really looking at it, speaking to individuals in the industry and making sure that it's something that's mutually beneficial for our community and for the business individuals.
Well, I'm pretty proud of you because I know that you started, 2.5 years ago and hired your first employee. Mm-hmm. And now how many do you have?
We've got about 67 employees today, and rapidly employing, and we'll be up over 100 come towards the end of the year.
That's pretty remarkable. And those are year-round jobs. They're not seasonal. All
year-round jobs, and nobody makes minimum wage.
And benefits?
Benefits for not everybody, but all salaried individuals and everything else, with the goal that we'll get to benefits for everybody shortly.
I love that.
Yep.
So does someone need some type of education? What are requirements that they need to work?
We have a lot of different positions open, anything from obviously management level, accounting, all the way down to cultivation and stuff. So certain positions require college degrees and educations. Others, we actually prefer people not to have any experience so that our team can train them. I come from the restaurant days where everybody's like, oh, I've got 30 years of experience or 15 years. I'm like, I want a server with no experience because you haven't learned bad habits yet. And so it's really bringing individuals in and giving them a chance. So, I live here on the peninsula and have for now 15 years. And so it's great to be able to build this and to employ people here from the peninsula and continue to grow business here.
Do you... I know one of the things that you've done that I think I've been impressed with, and that when we talk to others they're really impressed, is that you've really put good tracking on all of your products. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, so that if you've got an issue, you're more like you've modeled after the produce industry?
Sure. I mean, we look at it. We want to really help cannabis move into the legitimate industry, and to do that we have to go over and above regulations and compliance. And so I'm very lucky. I have an amazing business partner who actually produced for Whole Foods and Costco nationally back in the day. And so all of our products, everything we do is completely tracked. We can do a recall in 11 minutes if it was ever needed. He actually checks the system quarterly and does a mock recall. Seed to sale tracking, all of this stuff currently in California is not mandatory. It will be come January of 18, but for 2 years now, 2.5 years, we've actually been self-regulating ourselves, looking at Colorado, Washington, Oregon standards, and holding ourselves to those standards because we feel it's very important. I mean, we are producing a food product or a medicine, and making sure that people get what they expect and the consistency and the quality, and that if something isn't right, that it gets called back.
So, I mean, I was there when Senator Monning took a tour, and I know he was dead set against everything in the beginning, but once he took a tour of your building and your way of doing business, and he saw how professional it was, I think it kind of turned his head, and I think that you've done a really great job of educating the public and some of the policymakers that this is not just a backroom kind of business. This is forefront. This is the way it should be done.
Yeah, no, I mean, when we built out our facility and getting into this industry, it was all about advocacy and showing, how an industry or how a business can operate. And, we have built a beautiful facility that's USDA compliant. And, we continue to give tours and education because we feel that's really the backbone of people understanding this industry and the medicinal effects of this industry and anything else, and that's education. And so it's a very important part of our business. We do a ton of tours from just whether it's local, national politicians. We get calls almost every week from other cities or counties throughout California wanting to come tour our facility so they can understand the regulations. And I think it goes a lot, again, to Monterey County and the city of Salinas on how they set up their program, that other cities are already looking at it to model their programs after the way that they've set it up. So, we take a lot of pride in the level of service and facility and quality that we manufacture and what we do. So,
I know I was involved in the beginning with the city of Salinas with you, and they really did take their time. They studied it. They were very careful and very thorough, and I think that shows in what you've got as an end product, but also in the fact that you haven't had people complaining about you being in the neighborhood. Everything has just settled down. People who were afraid that you were going to be some nasty business next door to them, they're all very accepting now, and you're just another business in the city.
One of the greatest things I always hear is, "Oh, we never knew you were back there," or "We never knew you were here," which is great. That's the way a good neighbor should be. We have an operation, and we've again employees, but it's literally a manufacturing facility. We just have one extra ingredient, and that's really the way we look at it. We are we manufacture baked goods, chocolates, beverages, everything else. We just have one extra ingredient. So, that's really the only difference between our business and something that sits on Whole Foods shelf every day.
So, let's talk a minute about the tax. I think everybody put a 15% tax on it, which seems
$15 per square foot.
Oh, excuse me, of cultivation.
Of cultivation.
Okay, so it appears that may still drive some of the backroom business because people can have a $15 a square foot charge on top of everything else is pretty hefty. And do you see that changing? Do you think once everything gets kind of rolling that there'll be a change to that? Is it going to have to go back to the voters?
We hope so. It will have to go back to the voters, it looks like here, because it was the way it was set up. Depending on, I believe the county has the right to lower it or raise it in different areas. And I think it's something that we're going to have to see. If you look back at Prohibition, alcohol, the tax rate was very low at that time because you had to get it to, what we want to do is get it out of the black market. And we want to legitimize the industry and make sure that, if you overtax something, then people will find other ways of getting it at a lower price. And so I think it's very important that we look at evaluate it at the end of each year and see where it's going. The other thing is going to be is neighboring counties or cities that impose a lower tax could make companies from our city and our county move, because if somebody goes to a $7.50 tax, that's a massive difference when it comes down to everything. So
it goes straight to the bottom line.
Yeah, and so it's going to be really one of those important things for the county officials and city and everything else to watch and see what the neighbors are doing to make sure that we can maintain the industry and that it makes sense and we don't lose business to neighboring counties because of the tax benefits and everything else. So we'll have to see. Again, it's certainly it's very high right now. But we're going to work with it and again, see what we can do.
And obviously another huge problem is because the federal government has not approved it, and it's approved now in, 19 states?
23, I think
23,
it is.
okay. So it's mounting, it's a groundswell coming from the states, but the federal government is still not recognizing that it's a legitimate industry. So banking is kind of the
B word.
It is. It's a nasty word.
Yes. As we joke all the time, going to different events, and everybody's like, "Oh, I want to thank my banker." I'm like, "I would love to thank my banker. I just don't have one." No, it's definitely one of those challenges that we constantly deal with is banking and trying to find those relationships. And banks that are willing to look at the industry and make sure that if it's a legitimate company that pays its taxes and has the permits and the licenses and everything else and can track where their revenue comes from, that they can be treated like any other company. And so it's definitely the challenge. But I think we'll work through it. It's still probably going to be another year, the analysts seem to think. But it's one of those challenges you have to deal with the industry.
Well, it's an additional cost to government if what you have to do is pay your taxes in cash. Mm-hmm. They've got to hire somebody to count it and store it and ship it, which they've not had to do in years with anything. Very few people pay any of that in cash.
Sure.
Payroll, if you pay all your employees in cash, it's an issue.
Yeah. We're lucky enough because we're not a dispensary. Dispensaries have a much harder time because of the cash and everything they deal with. We're lucky enough to have some banking, so none of our employees are paid. They've got direct deposit, everything. They get their reimbursements by check and everything else. So we don't carry a lot of cash, luckily, in our business being manufacturing and a wholesaler. But it's very tough for dispensaries and some of the stuff with them setting up. And the tax thing, it's really funny because, we want to work with the cities and the counties and everything else and pay our taxes. And then if you pay in cash, there's a 10% penalty for paying your taxes. Like, wait a second here. I'm here with all my stuff to pay my taxes. And then we're going to get a penalty for 10% because they've got to hire more additional labor to count the cash. So it's an interesting dilemma. It's like, we're here, we want to pay, and then it's, oh wait, hold on, you get another sub bill for paying in cash. So it's an interesting thing. But again, it's a new industry, and we kind of take the approach that, listen, we need to just work alongside with city officials or county officials on working through this stuff, because it's going to be it's trial and error. What works, what doesn't work. Throw it up against the wall. Does it stick? No. Bounce back. Hit me in the face. What does this look like? And that's really going to be a big part of it. Is trial and error.
Well, I think the industry is fortunate, Rob, that you got into it, because I think that you're very systematic with it, logical. You don't get overexcited. You just kind of take a deep breath and go back out.
The only way you can. It's not very often that you have an opportunity to create a brand or multiple brand, but also help shape an industry. And so it's always one of those things people ask, it's like, oh, what are you going to tell your grandkids or your kid? I'm like, hopefully they're proud. We actually help shape an industry and into legitimacy. And, there's going to be bumps in the road, but hopefully, there's small bumps, and we continue to push forward and really make it an industry that's going to be respected and, be community leaders and community contributors for years to come.
How many dispensaries are you in?
We supply about 700 right now throughout California.
And how many are there total?
Oh, that number changes every day. The estimates are about 4,000.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
You're throughout
And
the state?
We're throughout the state, yep, from the Oregon border down to Mexico. So, yeah, no, it's, again, it's as the state continues to set up the regulations and counties and cities start to give licenses and regulations, it really starts to change the footprint of the industry. The way the state has passed the laws, you must be licensed locally before you can even apply for a state license. So no city or county has to be concerned about somebody, a business person getting a license, state license, and then going into their community and setting up, a licensed facility. You can't apply for a state license until you have your local. So it's, great for us, everything else, and also for counties and cities to be able to regulate how many they want in their town or their area and what that level looks like. And so it makes sense for each city and county. And then, and all that permit process starts in January of 18 when it comes into the state licenses. Right now, everybody's locally licensed.
So I see nothing but a good future, especially the way you're doing it. I think that's really important. So I think we all wish you a lot of luck. And I know that when you started and I was with you, we would run into so many people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who would say, oh, thank God I send my housekeeper to Santa Cruz every Tuesday to get my brownies. It made me kind of laugh. So now there's a local product. It's available in the dispensary in Delray Oaks.
Yeah, we've got a great local dispensary in Delray Oaks, fully licensed and supported by their city. And they carry, all of our products and our brands, and they're just, they're another, model for this industry. I mean, you go there and it's a beautiful, dispensary and store, and their staff is well trained and they're there to help. So again, if you need, you can walk in, and if you need something for sleep, they can help you and direct you to what that would be. If you need something for cancer, pain relief, whatever that is, they've got staff on hand to help direct you to the product that makes sense, because we know, this may be new to some people or kind of a comeback maybe for that they haven't tried in 20 years or something like that.
And now they need it.
And now they need it, and it's one of those things that they need some education about it.
That's great. So, Mr. Rob Weakley, and you'll hear a lot more as this industry grows and evolves. January of 18 is just around the corner. Monterey County is ready for that. So stay with us. This is Your Town. I'm Marianne Leffel. We'll be back in a minute.